very good morning to all the dignitaries present. A very good morning to Bhatia sir especially. It's been a pleasure seeing you. In fact, we just had a talk on call. And
yes, good morning, madam.
Good morning, sir. Good morning. Corona has given one good thing that we are able to meet so many people, which we would not have been able to do without the Corona times. So it's so lovely to meet such bright dignitaries from all around the country, which we would have not been able to do it without pandemic times. Thank you so much, sir. Bhatia sir, if you give the permission, then I can start the session. Sir, possibly you are on the mute.
Hello, Bhatia sir.
Just a minute.
Yes. Good morning, madam. Yes, of course, you can begin with your session, madam.
Sir, will you start, sir?
Okay, fine.
We'll begin
Just
as per our
madam, I
protocol.
will just make a small greeting comment to all the participants. Good morning, all participants. Hope you have had all the 3 sessions yesterday were taking care or giving due justice to the thrust area of artificial intelligence as it would apply to pharmaceutical drug development, and hope the sessions here on also are equally fulfilling as per the desired requirements of Atal Academy of Faculty Training. Thank you all of you. Have a good day.
Ma'am, will you please stop sharing for just for 2 minutes? So we'll go as per our protocol. Yeah, thank you so much, ma'am. Just a minute. We'll begin in just a short while. Patil sir, will you share the presentation slide? Patil sir, will you share the slide? Yeah, okay. Ma'am, I think there is some technical issue. We'll start in just a minute only. We are sorry for the trouble, ma'am. Just 1 minute more.
Not a problem. We are waiting for some.
Actually, we have just made some presentation slides for the speakers. So
Okay.
there is some problem with the presentation of that slide. We are
Okay.
sorting it out. Yeah, it will take hardly a minute or so.
Not a problem. Please
Yeah,
don't
ma'am.
worry.
Thank you. Yeah. Thank you so much.
All participants are requested. Please mute your mic. Okay, thank you.
Good morning, everyone. On behalf of Bharati Vidyapeeth College of Pharmacy, Kolhapur, I, Ms. Sonali Nirankari, welcome you. Respected Dr. H.N. More, Sir, Principal, Bharati Vidyapeeth College of Pharmacy, Kolhapur, Dr. M.S. Bhatia, Sir, Vice Principal, Bharati Vidyapeeth College of Pharmacy, Kolhapur, and Chief Coordinator of this FTP. Respected today's eminent speakers, Dr. Pooja Jain, Dr. Subarna Roy, and Dr. Subhash Patil, and all our participants for this second day of AICT Training and Learning Academy sponsored 5 days faculty development program on exploring pharmacokinetics with artificial intelligence and quantum computing organized by Bharati Vidyapeeth College of Pharmacy, Kolhapur. Now, moving towards our session, it will be my honor to introduce our today's speaker, Dr. Pooja Jain ma'am. Currently, she is working as an assistant professor at Indian Institute of Information Technology, Nagpur. She has completed B.Tech in Computer Science Engineering from Rajiv Gandhi Pradyogiki Vishwavidyalaya, Bhopal. M.Tech in CSC from IIT Allahabad and PhD in Knowledge Management System from JP University of Information Technology, Solon. She is having 3 years of industrial experience as software engineer at IBM India Private Limited and CSC Limited. Also 13 years of teaching experience as assistant professor at Jude Solon IIT Kota, and IIT Nagpur. Her research area is machine learning, multi-agent systems, knowledge management systems, analysis, estimation, design, coding, and code reviews and testing. She is having 20 international publications. She is IEEE senior member. She has received IBM Badge 2020 and has been invited as a speaker for various national and international conferences. So we have with us Dr. Pooja Jain, an expert in machine learning, artificial intelligence, and data science for the FTP, who shall address on machine learning introduction and classification. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Thank you for the beautiful introduction.
Yeah, welcome, ma'am.
Yeah. So shall I continue with the session?
Yes, ma'am. You can start sharing.
Okay. So first of all, I would like to thank the Institute for giving me this opportunity to interact with the participants and share my some experience on machine learning and artificial intelligence. It's my honor that I have been given this privilege. I'm really thankful to the management, and as well as I'm thankful to the Atal Academy for giving such types of workshops for academicians, so that even in such current pandemic times, we are able to do our research, training, and learning part comfortably sitting at our offices and at our homes. So it is really a boon for us academicians and researchers, such types of workshops. Thank you so much. Thank you for the introduction as well. I think you have taken it from the website, so it was such an elaborate one. Thank you. Okay. First of all, a hearty welcome to all the participants. I am a core computer science engineer, so probably I won't be able to link much to the biomedical domain. But yes, I would be able to give you the applications on which you can actually work upon in the biomedical domain, and I will give you a gist of machine learning. What is machine learning? What is AI? How they are interlinked to each other? What are these terms used? What is the type? What are the different types of machine learning? And I will also like to tell you the different steps which are involved in the application of any machine learning algorithm onto your data set. And this data set can be of any type. It can be from the biomedical domain or it can be from any other domain. So probably by the end of the session, you will have a fair idea of what is machine learning and how can you actually apply. In fact, after the session, you will come to know that you would be able to decipher the fields on which you can apply machine learning. Okay. So first of all, let's understand this word machine learning. Machine learning comprises of two words, machine and learning. So it in itself, if I see this, first of all, let me tell you what is learning. What is learning? Learning is something which you could learn bookish or you learn from your experiences. So there are two things which you do. So there were two fellows. There were two. In fact, I can say there were two researchers which were known as Nonaka and Takuchi. There were two people who came up with the idea of two types of knowledges, which is tacit knowledge and explicit knowledge. Tacit knowledge and explicit knowledge. So what they said was that there are two types of knowledge. Explicit knowledge is the one which you get from your books. Whatever you read, whatever you learn, whatever you read from the books you learn, you put it into your brains. That forms your explicit knowledge. And what is a tacit knowledge? Tacit knowledge you don't get in the books. Sometimes you hear your grandparents and your parents saying, "Baal aise hi safed nahi kiye hain." So what is that? It is that they have a lot of experience, and because of this experience they have gained a lot of knowledge. That is known as tacit knowledge, because in fact you must have heard this word, this sentence also, har cheez book mein nahi milti, isn't it? So you won't get each and everything in the book. It's not possible that you get all the details details, all the experiences in the book. Some things you have to do it on your own, and this is from the experiences. So you can teach a child ABCD, A for apple, B for ball. You can teach all these things, but there are certain things which a child has to learn from its own, from the experiences that it goes. That is exactly known as machine learning. So machine learning mostly deals with tacit knowledge. Explicit knowledge is Google search also, isn't it? So explicit knowledge is that is you feed something onto the computer and the computer is able to retrieve that in different efficient manners. So till now you must have heard of the words DBMS, database management systems, in which you have a lot of database and you are trying to manage that data in the sense you are able to retrieve the correct information in the correct format at the correct time. So suppose if you are searching for the capital of Andaman and Nicobar, then probably you should be able to get Port Blair in very less time, in fractions of seconds. So how do you do that? You manage your database in such a way so that the retrieval is easy and you are able to get your right information right time. Okay, so that was we used to talk about database management systems. But now we have come up to the concept of even if you have not fed to the computer, it should be able to learn with the experiences. So today, if you ask a question, what is the capital of Andaman and Nicobar? The system was not able to answer you, but you tell, but the system asks you, okay, you tell me the answer. You tell the answer as Port Blair. It will learn that answer, and next time if you ask, then it will be able to answer that question. Firstly, secondly, suppose if he answers some wrong question, suppose he answers as Delhi is the capital of Andaman and Nicobar, and you say no, it is not. You are wrong. So then also it should learn, so that next time onwards he should not give you a wrong answer. Okay, so these are the things that the system learns with experience. We do it by birth. A 6-month-old child is able to recognize the faces of his parents, isn't it? He can recognize the face of his parents from 6 months itself. So can you expect a machine also do it? Yes, I can make a software which is able to recognize the face of human beings, but yes, it will take some time. I'll have to write some 10,000 lines of code to make the machine recognize the face of the people. That is possible, but I will have to do that. So that is what I am trying to tell you is key. There are certain things which humans do naturally, and if we are making the machine do those things artificially, then that is nothing but I am making a machine learn in the same way as we do. So that is known as machine learning. Correct. So if you're trying to make the machine behave in the same way as we do, it is known as machine learning. Now, since I think you have already gone through 3 lectures yesterday, so you must be aware of what is AI. AI is artificial intelligence. That is, you are imbibing intelligence onto a machine artificially. So what we people, we human beings are doing naturally, we are asking the machines to do it artificially. Okay, so the same thing as, so we are asking the machine to behave in the same way as human beings do artificially. So from this you can decipher that I have big box, this is AI, and ML is a subset of AI. This is ML. Because ML is also doing the same thing, but it is more related towards learning. But AI involves a lot of things. AI involves working, behaving, learning in the same way as human beings do. But ML focuses on just the learning part. How you are making the machine learn in the same way as human beings do. That is mainly machine learning. And I can draw one more inside this and say, okay, this is deep learning. Deep learning is talking about artificial neural networks. So now you come to know that, okay, AI is the superset. The subset of AI is ML, machine learning, and the subset of ML is deep learning. Clear? So I have a bigger circle as artificial intelligence, machine learning, and deep learning. So how can you this is basically that what is the relationship, and you can say this machine learning is fully inside AI. Other applications of AI also, like robotics, natural language processing. So there are different applications of AI. So what is the comparison? How can you say that machine learning is different from traditional programming? Now, what you used to write, if we are supposed to write something, just if suppose I want to write a program, so what I'll do is I'll say int a is equal to 2, int b is equal to 3, then I'll say int c is equal to a plus b, and then I can write c out c. This is a simple C++ program in which I am taking two data values, in which a is equal to 2 and b is equal to 3, and I am getting the output. What is my output? My output is c is equal to 2 plus 3, 5. Okay, so what was this? What was a is equal to 2 and b is equal to 3? It was nothing but the input, the data. So what happens in the case of traditional programming? We give data and the program as the input. This was the complete program that we gave as an input. And what was the output that we got? Is c is equal to 5. So we got the output and we give the data and program as the input to the program. Isn't it? Input to the computer system. Now if we reverse this and we say, okay, I have given you the data and I'm saying this is the output. What should be the program? What should be the program means what should be the operator here? So at once you will say that the operator should be plus. And I should write a program so that I am able to add these two numbers to get the output as 5. So what I have done here, I have given data. I have given you the output. What is the output? 5. I have given you the data 2 and 3. And now I am asking you what should be the program so that I am able to get the desired output. So this is nothing but machine learning. This is machine learning, in which I am giving the data, I am giving the output as an input to the computer, and I am asking you what should be the program. What should be the actual program, how you are going to fine tune your parameters, or how you are going to change the things so that you are able to get your desired output. What is the desired output? 5. Correct? So what is machine learning? Machine learning is basically, it is asking you how you are going to modify your program in order to get your desired output. Okay, like there is a very simple example of this. The interview asks, what is your biggest strength? And I say, I'm a fast learner. The interview asks, what is 11 into 11? I say 65. So interview says, no, it is not at all 65. No, it's not even close. It's 121. So what I'll do is at once I will learn 121 and say, okay, it is 121. This is what machine learning is doing. It should learn from your output, fine tune its input parameters in order to get the desired output. Okay. So if now, since we most of us are engineers, so if you want to actually do it mathematically, I need to have certain variables so that I can solve this problem mathematically. How we are going to solve this mathematically? I will have to take 3 values, P, T and E. What is P? P is basically the performance, T is the task, and E is the experience. So what is task? This is the basically the objective what we are supposed to do. What is my task? What am I supposed to do? So performance is the evaluation. Basically, how well were we able to do our task? Were we successful in doing our task? Was it actually successful? Did I get the output? What is my task? Basically to match the output. I want to fine tune my parameters. I want to give you a program in such a way so that I am getting the desired output. So have I got my desired output? That is my performance. And what is E? E is basically the experience, the database that I have. Okay. So I give you an example, like saying playing chess is the task. What is the task? I want to play chess. What is the P? The performance. That is how many times did I actually play. Suppose I played 10 games and out of which I won 8. So what is my accuracy? 80%. 8 out of 10. I was able to win 8 out of 10 times and I lost 2 times. So what is my loss? 20% and my win is 80%. So, and what is E? E is basically the rules, how to play the chess. And apart from the rules, E will also tell me, like last time you put your horse forward and because of it you had to lose the game, so don't do it further. Or you can say that, okay, if you put your king in front of your queen, then there are more chances of you winning, so you should do that. So these are the E's, the rules of the game and the experience. You did this and you were able to succeed. Like you see this example, the task is to drive on a 4-lane highway. What is the task that you are supposed to drive? It's an automatic car and you are driving on a 4-lane highway. It's a T. What is a P? The number of kilometers you were able to travel without any accidents. Yes. So suppose I am supposed to travel on an automatic through an automatic car and I was able to travel 10 kilometers. So my performance is 10. Isn't it? How many kilometers you were able to travel without any accidents or without any errors or something like that? What should be the E? E is nothing but the Google Maps. If I have to go from A point to the B point, then I should follow this path. This is E. And there can be some other E's also, in the sense that when I followed this path, it took me 10 minutes. When I followed this path, it took me 20 minutes. And when I followed this path, it took me 15 minutes. So which path should I follow? Okay, so one is time constraint, how much time that I am taking, and the other can be the distance constraint. Suppose for me, the priority is distance. It should be smallest distance. Even if the time is more, I don't care. So I will take this part, isn't it? But for me or for some other person, it may be time. Even if the distance is large, I don't care. So probably it will go for this path. Because the distance is more, of course, but the time is less. And there can be various reasons for it. There may be more traffic or there may be more potholes or something like that, isn't it? So on the basis of my priority, is it time or distance, I will decide that which path I'm going to follow. And this is all stored inside my database. E, the experiences. Okay. So now I give you an example.
Hello.
There were some people in the lobby. I think there should be someone as the administrator, and the person is letting the people in because it is asking me for the admission. Yeah, somebody was saying anything.
Yes, madam.
Hello.
We just allowed them.
Yes, sir.
Our lobby is not active, madam.
Pardon?
Lobby is not active.
But I got a message saying that the people are waiting for the lobby.
One is there by how I don't know, but one is there.
Okay.
He's not getting in. Uh,
Okay, not a problem.
okay.
Okay, so at this point of time, if you have any doubts and questions, then you can please ask. Have you left any option for this? Can the people ask the questions?
Yes, they can unmute and ask.
Okay. So if you have any doubts or questions, you can please unmute and then you can ask till here. Because I have shown you a slide and I wanted, what should be the, what is the task T in this? The email program is watching me which emails I mark as spam or not. And on the basis of what it learns, how to better filter the spam. What is the task T in this? Can anybody tell me this?
Madam, hello.
Yes.
Yeah, the task could be like classifying the email
Okay, very good.
and to segregate or to separate into or not spam.
Okay. There is some disturbance at your end, I suppose, on the mic. Yeah.
Yes, madam. A, that is classifying emails as spam or not spam. That is the
Oh,
task.
okay. Okay, great. Okay, great. So classifying the emails as a spam or not is basically the task. Visible or not, I'm not sure. So let me just. Okay. So classification of the emails, whether it is spam or not, is basically the task. This is the task. Watching you label emails as spam or not is nothing but the E, that is the experience, and the number of emails which I was able to correctly identify as spam or not is my performance, the P. I was able to identify that, okay, this particular email as spam, and on the basis of the predictions that yesterday I did this as a spam, so probably today also I'm going to make it as a spam. So that forms my performance. Okay, and E is it is checking that, okay, I'm getting mails from a Shoppers Stop, I'm getting mails from Amazon, and Amazon mails I'm not making as spam, but I'm making Myntra mails as spam. So next time if a mail comes from Myntra, then the system automatically says it is a spam. That is E. Okay, so from the basis of E, it was able to identify that all the mails which are coming from Myntra are spam, and if I'm able to do it correctly, my performance is 100%. Okay, and what was the task? That is, I have to classify that a particular email is a spam or not. Correct? Okay, now we'll come to the point which is more important for you from the biomedical domain is, when do we use machine learning? You need to identify the tasks, you need to identify the problems for which you can actually use machine learning algorithms for your problem solving. But you'll have to identify that what are those domains, yeah, what are those problems which can be solved by machine learning. So one of the examples, it says you should apply machine learning on those problems on which human expertise does not exist. Okay, so like suppose if you say face recognition, you can recognize the face of your neighbors, and one day a girl comes in and you say, okay, are you are you the neighbor's niece? How did you identify? His eyes were same, his nose was same, or his lips were same, or his forehead was same, something or the other. And mind you, if a newborn is born, a newborn baby is born, and everybody says he resembles a mother, the maternal side says he resembles a mother, the paternal side says he resembles his father, it's always the same. It always happens. Every time the maternal side will say that, okay, he or she resembles his mother. Because nobody is perfect, or nobody is able to give the exact thing. My son, some people tell that my son is on me, and somebody says my son is on my husband. It happens because you cannot give the 100% answer to it, but you can identify, you can very well identify that, okay, this niece, she is a niece of your neighbor from some recognition. Okay, so you can recognize the faces, but you cannot explain how you have done that. Okay, image classifications. Can you identify who is a dog and who is a cat? Which one is a cat and which one is a dog? I think you can definitely identify. You have never seen a white colored cat, but if you see a white colored cat, can you identify that this is a cat? What is the possibility that you will say it is a dog? I'll say 0% possibility. You will never say a cat to be a dog, even if you have not seen that particular colored cat ever in your life. Isn't it? So even if you have not seen that image, that means you don't have that image in your database. Clear? So you have not seen ever a white colored cat, but if you see that, you are not going to confuse cat with a dog, or you are not going to confuse cat with a lion. You will definitely say it is a cat, even if it is white in color. That is known as image classification. You can identify that this is a cat, but how do you do it? Can you tell me how do you do it? You didn't have any, you had never seen in your life a white colored cat. You don't know how it looks like, but still you can identify. Can you explain your expertise in this? No, we don't know how did we do it, but we can do it. So machine learning is used in such problems in which we cannot tell that how we are going to do it. So till here, till I will say 2015, till 2015, people used to consider machine learning as a rule-based engine. If then else, if this particular image resides in the database, then you can identify this as a cat, otherwise not. But now the conditions have changed. And now even if you don't have it in a database, you can still say that it is a cat or it is a dog. How do you do that? That is all machine learning is all about. Okay? Like we all are teachers, isn't it? So when we are teachers, we are able to identify any types of tools. Because a student can write any type of tools. These are all tools. I request all the participants to please mute their mics. Thank you. So these are all tools, and we can very well identify these are all tools. So how is a machine going to do that? This is also two, this is also two, this is also two, this is also two. How is it being able to do it? It's not an if then else rules. It's not possible that you have all the tools in the database. Like if you see, these are all tools, and it's not possible to have all these tools in the database. Every time you will find a new 2. Okay? Every time you find a new 7. So it's not possible that you have all the images in the database. Every 7 is different. If you see handwriting recognitions, it's absolutely different every time. You cannot have a database of 135 crore people to be able to do this. Okay, so you need to apply certain algorithms which apply its own brain and then solve the problem. Recommendation systems. Like you want to go to a hill station. Okay? You ask your friend, where should I go? So he will tell you, okay, you go to Mussoorie. Or he will say, you go to Shimla. So he said, okay, Shimla, should I go Shimla? How is it? So she will tell you that, okay, Shimla is a very beautiful place. It has a lot of hills. But the only problem is that you have to take a taxi from Chandigarh, and the road is zigzag. And if you are comfortable traveling on mountains, then you should go to Shimla. If you're not comfortable, go to Ooty. Ooty is somewhat easier. The distance is also, and if the distance you want the mountain distance to be less, go to Mussoorie. It is only 35 kilometers from Dehradun. It is only 35 kilometers from the plains. So what is this? What is this? You are just trying to recommend something to your friend on the basis of your experience. What is my experience? Last year I went to Dehradun and I had a very lovely time. But the only problem was the distance was very haphazard. So I had to take a Avomine tablet, or I had to take some tablet for vomiting, and then only I was able to travel. But after reaching there, it was very beautiful, and you should go to so and so hotel. And there is also a pure veg restaurant close by. You can go to that restaurant, and so on. This is what? This is recommendation. So a very good example is Netflix. If you open Netflix, and in fact in Amazon Prime also, if you open that, it will ask you your age, and it will ask you your genre. So, like suppose if I say I'm 30 years and above or 40 years and above, then probably it may show me some of the content which 18 years cannot see. So I can have 3 different types of categories, one for myself, one for my children, and one for my parents. Okay, and accordingly it will recommend. It is not going to recommend any romantic movie to my kid. It will show cartoon movies to my kid, and it will show some old movies of 60s and 70s to my parents. So this is recommendation systems. So how does it may be possible that my parents don't like old movies. It is possible. But what it will do, what is the probability that they are going to love it? Most of the parents like to watch that movie, so why not recommend? Okay. And if you are asking me, like, suppose if a girl asks me, should I go to Shimla? So I'll tell yes, okay, you should definitely go, blah, blah, blah. And he went to Shimla and he had a very bad experience. And he returns back and says, no, I didn't love it. So it's not that my recommendation was not correct. My recommendation was correct, but probably she didn't enjoy the recommendation. So what will I do is I'd again modify. Whatever the experiences she had shared with me, I will modify with that. And probably when I am going to give the recommendations to the third person, I will include the second recommendation also, which was not good. So according to me, Shimla was very nice, but according to her, Shimla was not good. So I will have a mixed recommendation now. Again, the fourth person comes and says it was wonderful. So again, I will increase the rating of Shimla a little bit because she said it was good. He said it was good. This is what happens in sentiment analysis or the ratings. If you check any Amazon product, at the bottom you can see the ratings on the basis of the feedback that has been given by the different customers. Okay, so this particular product has a rating of 4.5. So most of the people are liking it. Go ahead and buy it. Okay. So basically, you use ML when human expertise does not exist. Forecast sales. This is a very tricky process of predicting the stock market. Human beings cannot do it for sure. Can you tell me the price of Infosys share 10 years back? Can you tell me the price of Infosys share 5 years back? Even 5 days back, you won't be able to tell me. Until and unless you have a very brilliant memory like Shakuntala Devi, you will not be able to tell me. Okay, so you cannot answer these questions, and you cannot answer those questions also that how it is going to work, go. Like what are the predictions? Last year it went very high. Like suppose Hero Motors, people do buy automobiles in these current times. So you will say that okay, the prices are going to increase in Diwali times and the Shara times. So this is the analysis that has been done from past 10 years, and accordingly you can identify that okay, you can give the predictions like in another 10 years this is going to happen, or another 20 years this is going to happen, or tomorrow the price is going to fall or go up. So this all can be done with the help of machine learning. Types will come again. So whenever you want to solve any machine learning problem, you need to solve these 6 steps. What are these 6 steps? Define the objective, gather the data, prepare the data, explore the data, build a model, evaluate the model, and do the predictions. Okay? Define the objective. It is nothing but the T. You should know what you are supposed to do. Like if you relate it with the biomedical domain, suppose I want to go for glaucoma detection. So objective is glaucoma detection. Clear? Now I want to gather the data. I want to take the data sets. So I show you one website. Let me share my screen completely. So there is a website, Kaggle.com. It's a very beautiful website which contains a lot of data sets which you can use for your research part. I simply have to search glaucoma. And here if you see, I can find all the data sets here. So if you see glaucoma data sets, eye disease data set. And from this you can get your data set. You can get your images, X-ray images, heart diseases, coronavirus images, and so on. So you can get a list of a lot of data sets, a lot of images, and you can download this and use it for your research purposes. And I tell you, in current scenarios, the most important part is data gathering and preparation of the data, because it takes a lot of time, and that is the biggest problem. You can identify a problem, you can define your task, but getting the data for it is a big problem. And then you want to format it in the way in which you would actually like to use is another big problem. So this site can help you in getting the data set, but you will have to modify it and get it. In fact, here you will also get some codes also, which you can use for your coding. Like this is a code. I'm working currently on one of the projects on glaucoma detections. Like, see, you can get the code also from here. And these are the images. And this is a machine learning code. You can use this code, but definitely you will not be able to use the code directly, because there are certain hidden things which generally students do have, or the faculty members who are putting the code here, the coders, they skip certain things on which you will have to work on your own. So probably you will not be able to just copy paste this code and run it. You will have to do certain modifications for your own data set or for your own application domain. But my point was, you can get the data set from this website, prepare it as you need it, and then you can use it for your application. So you first need to decide what is your T and for this T, what kind of images do you need? If you're going for glaucoma detection, then probably you will need an eye data set. It is not possible that you go for a kidney data set. Even if you get a kidney images, you won't be able to do the glaucoma detection. Okay, so you need to identify what kind of data do you need and what is the task. Then secondly, you have to prepare the data. Sometimes what happens is you have the data, like you have this table, and you have the data like this. So you have the data as 1, 2, 5, 6, 5, 40, 35, 36, and so on. So you have this data, but this column is missing. This column is missing. So you'll have to fill this column. Either it can be average of the rest of the values, or it can be just equal to the previous value or something like that, because incomplete data will not be able to help you for the analysis. So what you can do is you can fill it within average of the value. Average is 3, 1.5. So you can have it like 1.5 is the average. Or if you divide 3 by 3, then probably 1 would be an average. So you can fill with 1 here. And you say it should be 1. So missing values need to be taken care of, redundant variables, duplicate values, all this needs to be taken care of before you go for the analysis. Kaggle is what we discussed just now. Then there is another data set which is very vastly used, MNIST and CIFAR-10. And then you go for the exploratory data analysis. Exploratory data analysis, you try to figure out, is there any connection between the data? Is there any relationship between the first row and the third row or the second row? Is there any relationship between the different sets of data? That you need to find out with the help of exploratory data analysis. And this you can very well do with some visualization tools, or you can draw a pie chart. You can draw a pie chart and you can do a histogram by which you can find out the relationship between all this data, like this. Exploratory data analysis, that is the initial stage analysis before the application of machine learning. And then you actually train the machine learning model. You decide that on the basis of your data, you decide that whether it is a supervised algorithm or an unsupervised. We'll be talking about that in the next 10 minutes. And then you train the model. I gave you an example of 11 into 11 earlier, but actually what happens is it doesn't give you the answer at one go. It takes a lot of steps. It takes a lot of steps like this. Suppose you ask a question of 9 plus 10 and you say it is 3. So it says, no, it is not 3, it is 19. So it will increase the value of 3 a little bit, which is close to 19, but it is not going to do it at the first instance. It will say 16, no, it is 19, okay, it will say 18, then no, it is 19, and then it will finally come to 19. So what is this? It is basically fine-tuning the parameters. You will have to modify the parameters. So these were the parameters which we're using, and you are again changing these parameters a little bit so that you are able to get the desired output. Okay, like suppose I give you an example of 2, 3 and is equal to 5. So I'll first go for minus, no, minus will not work. Then I'll go for plus, I'll go for multiplication, is multiplication working? Then I'll go for division, no, division is not working. And then finally I'll come to plus and say, okay, plus is working. Okay, so these are the ways how you do it, because there is no standard rule and you have to go for a trial and error method. So you'll first try a negative, a minus, you try in multiplication, you try a division, and then finally you come up with the addition and say, okay, addition is working. Okay, it may be possible that you do it on the first instance as addition and you get an answer. That is also possible. So you are lucky person and you got an answer. Okay, I sincerely request to please mute your mic. All the participants to please mute their mics. Okay. So whenever we have the data set, suppose I have this much of data set. I have 100 rows. Suppose I have 100 rows of data set. So generally there is a rule that we follow. We go for 80% for training and 20% on that 20% of the data we are going for testing. Now what is this? Like suppose if I say the values are suppose 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Let me show you a COVID data set that will make the things more clear. At any point of time, if you are not able to see, just let me know. So this is a COVID data set which I have just taken out from Kaggle, and it is such types of data set which tells you that what are the confirmed cases, what are the deaths, and what are the recoveries on the basis of dates and country. So for Afghanistan, on 22nd of January, there were no cases. Then we moved on a little further and we saw that for 10th of March in Afghanistan, there were 7 cases. And if you move a little more further, so then the cases are going to increase at a very, very rapid pace. Here, India, on 14th of March, we had 102 cases, out of which 2 were confirmed, and there were 4 recoveries and 2 deaths. Okay, so such types of data is there. Suppose if I want to find out the data only for India, so that is what I was trying to tell you, preparation of the data. I have to prepare this data. So what I'll do is at the first instant, I'll say India, and then I will try to filter this. I want to filter this on India only, like this. I want only the India data to be. I can do that. I can do the filtration on India. And once I have done the filtration on India, then I would like to predict what is going to happen in the future. What are the number of cases that I can predict on 1st of April? Or what are the number of cases that I can predict on 1st of November? Something like that. So that is my predictions on the basis of certain application, certain algorithm application. Okay. So preparation of the data is, first of all, I filtered the data on the country. Then secondly, I don't want this latitude and longitude because that will remain the same for this particular country, so that I can remove these 2 columns. These 2 columns are removed. Then I have to also change this to numeric format because this is a string format and analysis doesn't work on string formats. I have to convert it into numeric format. So these are the primary things, preliminary things that you have to do before application of an algorithm. So first of all, you will do the filtration on the country, then you will remove 2 columns, then you will do the encoding of the string format. And if you want, I can show you the code also for it. So how is it done? That will give you a feel that how actually it is done. Just give me 2 minutes. We generally do it on Colab because Colab is the cloud that is given by Google on which you can code, and you don't have to have that much of RAM onto your own system, and you can utilize the RAM of, if you check here, it has a lot of RAM which you can actually use. I'll have to add the data set here. So I'll just add the data set. And then I can if you see this, even if I don't do this, I have already executed the things. This was the complete data set. And if you see, I filter the data on the country. See, I don't want latitude and longitude. So these are I have removed the 2 columns and I have kept the other rest of the columns like this. And this is nothing but I have used only for the country. Let me show you. Yeah. In this, I have filtered the data on the country. So this is one of the preliminary step that is done. What is the second step that we did is remove the columns. We removed the columns like this in this case. And then I'll do the encoding and the decoding part. Here's the encoding and the decoding part in which I told that the date is changed to numeric value. So this is particularly the date which is changed to a numeric value now. And then I can go ahead and do the analysis and get such types of graphs. Okay, so corona analysis is nothing but you are trying to predict what is going to happen in the future on the basis of certain parameters which you already have. And then you can find out your accuracy also. Like suppose if I do the prediction for 1st of November, 1st of November has already passed. And then I can compare my predictions with the actual result and get my loss. What is my loss? What is the difference between my predictions and the actual result? Isn't it? And on the basis of that, I can again change the parameters and get the result which is actually present. Okay. Then again, I can have such types of values also in which it is going to predict the data which is going to happen in the next month. And then I can, so that is why we say that 80% will go for the training and 20% is for testing, because this 20% of the data is you have predicted, you are comparing with the actual results, and then you are finding out your loss. Okay, the error. And then on the basis of that, you can go for the evaluation and optimization. You are checking it out whether your model is giving you the correct results or not. And if not, you will optimize the result. Optimization is basically fine tuning your parameters. You are changing the values in such a way so that you get the desired results. Overfitting and the underfitting of the model. It says that if suppose I have these points, and if I try to plot a graph, if I do it like this, then this is known as overfitting. I want to cover all the points. This is also not good. And if I have these points and I just draw a line without considering anything, this is also not good. So I want to have something in between. If you train a lot, then also it is a problem. If you train your model less, then also it is a problem. The error is going to increase in both the cases. Here also the error is very high when you have not trained it at all. And once the training is very much, then also the error is very high. So we need this part, which is in between, in which the error is minimum. This part. So this is known as underfitting and this is known as overfitting. In overfitting, you have, like, the extreme case of underfitting is this. Whatever be the value of x, y will always remain the same as y is equal to 3. This is an extreme condition of underfitting. So we need to avoid underfitting also and overfitting also, and then probably come at this stage, which is medium variance and medium bias. Okay. Then there is another way of doing the evaluation. Hello. That is confusion matrix.
Hello.
Yes.
Ma'am, can I ask a question here?
Sure.
Madam, you said that if there is too much training given, means we have to optimize the amount of data which we should be using for the training. Is it that?
No. Not the optimization of the data, optimization of the training. Like if you are actually implementing it, so there is something which is known as epochs. Epochs means the iterations. How many times of iterations that you are going to do? If you do a lot of iterations, then what happens is actually this. That is known as overfitting. You would try to connect all the points like this, which is not good. Because if you get a new point, let me show you that. If you get a new point this, then that actually it is not falling on this curve. And the loss is very high. This is your loss. Okay. So that is why, and even if you do it like these for the points and I make a straight line, then there is a possibility that you are able to predict the value of this correctly. Okay. So epochs is the amount of training that you are going to do. So not doing any training, doing a lot of training, and there is a middle in between in which you will find out the exact point, which is also known as gradient descent. Gradient descent is one of the algorithms for optimization in which you find out the minimum error. Okay. Any other question? Ma'am?
Yeah, I think done from participant side, ma'am.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to show you this confusion matrix. Like suppose I have what I'm the prediction is the person has cancer. I want to predict that the person has cancer. This is my prediction. So on the basis of certain parameters, like his, like a lot of things, like his heartbeat, heart rate, whatever. I don't know exactly what are the different parameters, but there are certain parameters, and on the basis of that, I predict the person has cancer. And I treat this as true positive. If the person has cancer, so there are 4 possibilities. What are the 4 possibilities? The person has cancer and the system predicts he has cancer. Okay, this is the first probability. Second is the person has cancer and the system predicts he does not have cancer. Third probability, the person does not have cancer and the system predicts he has cancer. And the last possibility is the person does not have cancer and the system predicts he does not have cancer. Okay. So if you make on, if you see these things, obviously this is correct and this is correct. Obviously this is correct and this is correct. The person had cancer and the system predicted he has cancer. The person didn't have cancer and he predicted he didn't have cancer. Correct? So this is known as true positive. And this is known as true negative. True, it was true. Whatever was correct and your system was able to predict it in a correct way. What about this? The person has cancer and the system predicts he does not have cancer. So this is what? This is false for sure. It is not correct, but it is a false positive or false negative. He does not have cancer is false negative. If I'm going to predict he doesn't have cancer, then of course it has to be negative, and this has to be false positive. So if you can see from this, these two are very, very dangerous. Very, very dangerous. What happens is the person has cancer and the system predicts he does not have cancer, so you don't put him onto medication. If you don't put him on medication, then it may lead to his death. The second case also, the person does not have cancer and the system predicts he has cancer and you put him on medication, then also can be very, very fatal. So we try to avoid these two. We don't want to have these two. Correct? So the evaluation of this model is completely on the basis of this. What is your true positives? What is your true negatives? And we try to avoid the false positives and false negatives. Okay, so precision is you correctly predicted the patients with cancer, and there were some of the patients which didn't have cancer and you predicted they have cancer. So correct predictions upon total number of predictions with cancer. Some were right, some were wrong. And what is recall? Recall is correct predictions upon total number of people having cancer. Some of them were predicted and some of them were not predicted. False negatives you didn't predict, even though the person had a cancer and you didn't predict. Got it? So what you are doing is you are trying to find out the accuracy, precision and recall with the help of this. How many times were you actually able to predict the person had cancer and the person had cancer and you were able to predict it correctly? That is false positive. And the person didn't have cancer and you predicted he doesn't have cancer, that is false negative. Clear? So this is one sort of evaluation. So Amel, in a nutshell, you want to have the representation of the hypothesis. How we are going to have it, that is basically putting the model onto your data set, finding out the loss of the evaluation, and then you try to manipulate your parameters, fine tune your parameters in order to get the correct result, the desired result. Okay. Now we'll quickly move on to the types of machine learning. We'll quickly move on to the types of machine learning. So if you see here, there are basically 4 types of machine learning: supervised, unsupervised, semi-supervised, and reinforcement. So it is very clear from the diagram that this is a supervised algorithm. Supervised algorithm, there is a teacher which is teaching you each and everything, and each and everything is being taught by the teacher. You don't have to study on your own. So there is nothing which is not supervised, and there is a supervisor which is teaching you. Like I'm delivering the lecture, or I'm telling you what is machine learning and what are the different types of machine learning. This is supervised. And
Madam,
now if I ask you,
Madam, your
yeah,
screen is not visible just now.
And check your side,
okay.
madam. Madam, your screen is visible.
Okay, is it visible?
You continue, ma'am.
Okay.
Madam, kindly check your side, madam. I think problem with your side. Okay.
Okay, sir.
Okay, madam. Thank you, madam. You proceed, madam.
Thank you so much. Okay. So if you see this, so this is supervised. I am giving you the lecture, then that is supervised. But if I tell you that I'm not going to cover reinforcement, you do it on your own, this is unsupervised. If some topic is not covered in the lecture and you have to do it on your own, that is unsupervised. And if I'm telling you this, and you don't have to study on your own, that is supervised. But what generally happens, even if you are delivering a lecture, what generally happens? It is a combination of these two. It is always a combination of these two, and that is known as semi-supervised. That is, something would be known, something will not be known, and something you will have to do it on your own, isn't it? So it will always be a combination of these two. This is known as semi-supervised. Okay, a combination of supervised and unsupervised is semi-supervised, and this happens practically. Also this happens because if even if you are taking a class for students, so some of the things the students will be able to understand in the class, and some of the things they have to do it on their own. So generally we go for this part. Okay, so in practical sense also we go for supervised and unsupervised, a combination of these two, that is semi-supervised. And what is reinforcement? Reinforcement is, okay, let me first talk about supervised and unsupervised. Like this is supervised. I have the data set with me and it clearly shows it, they are labeled also. Tom, 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 and I have this and they are labeled. So what is my entire algorithm going to do? As I have discussed those 6 steps in application of a machine learning algorithm. So all those 6 steps would be covered. What are those 6 steps? I'll go for data cleaning, exploratory data analysis, algorithm, and model evaluations. I'll do everything. So I'll go for feature detection, feature extraction. What are the features? It has 2 hands, 1 tail, long body, gray in color, pink ears, and so on. Here I'll have a small body, brown in color, 2 legs, 2 hands, a small tail, and pink ears. Okay. So suppose I have extracted the features for this. Then what I'll do is I'll compare the features of this with this. And I say, okay, these two features are matching. So why not put both inside one set? Let us put both inside one set. Okay. Then this also has the same set of features, put it inside one set. Now this would be compared with this and it'll say, okay, no, it is not matching, put it in another set. Then this is put in the same set and this is put in the same set. And we get two sets. One is named as Jerry and the other is named as Tom. I give you another example. Suppose I have these triangles and I have these squares. So I'll do the feature extraction and I'll mention also that this is a triangle, this is a triangle, this is a triangle, this is a square, this is a square, and this is a square. Okay, so I have already mentioned that these are triangles. Again, the feature extraction, blue in color, 3 lines, put inside one set. So I'll go here, blue line, blue color, 3 lines. Set known as square. What is the other way around? Unsupervised learning. Unsupervised learning says it is unlabeled data. The data is not unlabeled. So in this step also I'll do the same part. All these steps would be there. Feature extraction, 2 hands, 2 legs, big tail, big body, gray in color, brown in color, small tail, small 2 legs, 2 hands, small tail. So all this would be done. And we'll say, okay, these two are similar to each other, put it in one set. This is also having the same feature, put it into another set. And these are, 3 have the same features, put it into another set. So I'll have 2 sets like this, but we are not going to term it as Tom or Jerry because we don't know. The labeling is not done. So what I'll do is I'll simply say this is something as A and this is something as B. This is known as clusters. So clustering is a sort of unsupervised learning. And the previous one is known as classes because this is a classification problem. So if you see, supervised learning is of 2 types, classification and regression. And classification can be done by a number of methods, decision trees, random forest, SVM, and so on. Medical imaging is an example of classification. Like glaucoma detection, when I was telling you, so you will have a lot of images. You have a lot of images of eyes. And there you can go for a binary classification. You will say, these people don't have glaucoma and these have glaucoma. So you will say this is 0 and this is 1. This doesn't have glaucoma and this has glaucoma. You can go for a binary classification, or you can go for heart diseases also. And you say, okay, this doesn't have heart diseases and this has heart diseases. Something like this. So generally in biomedical domain, we go for classification problems, but you will have to find out whether the data is labeled or not. If the data is not labeled, you will go for clustering. You will go for clustering. Unsupervised techniques, here you will go for clustering. But if the data is labeled, you will go for classification. Clear? Now, what is reinforcement learning? Reinforcement learning says, I don't have any data. You had this data. This data was present. Okay, let me give you another example of unsupervised learning. In the case of unsupervised learning, 3 lines red in color, 4 lines red in color, put inside one set, put this inside one set, name it as A and name it as B. You cannot say it is a triangle or a square because the data is not labeled. Clear? Now, if you say this, I have this database, but in reinforcement learning, you don't have any database. Nothing is present. As and when you proceed, you form your own data sets. You form your own data sets. Like if you see a very, very small child, a 3-year-old kid, okay, and he put his hand in the switch. You at once scold him, you should not do this, you should not put your hand in the switch. So what will the child do? He will stop doing it, and he will also promise, I'm not going to do it in the future because it is very dangerous for me. Okay, so he did some action on the environment, He get an observation for it. Observation was when the parent told him don't do it. And if he doesn't do it in the future, he'll get a reward. Okay, but if he continues doing it, if he do it in the next day also, he'll get a tight slap from his father. That is a reward and a penalty. So you'll get a penalty if you don't follow the feedback, and you get a reward if you do the same thing again and again. Clear? So some of the things which you don't have in your database, then also you can operate on reinforcement learning. And generally reinforcement learning in today's scenarios goes for gaming applications. They generally go for gaming applications because the games learn as they do. Okay? All the games are like that, in which they operate as and when the data is available to them. So as you get a data, you will perform a game and you will get your results. Then again, you will get some data, you will again perform. So games are always self-learning. That go for reinforcement learning. So we don't use reinforcement learning in the medical domain too much because we are very much dependent upon the data. If the data is wrong, then there is no point in having any type of analysis. So we don't go for reinforcement learning in medical domain. We go only for supervised and unsupervised learning. So if you see here, there is an agent which performs certain action on the environment, and he gets a feedback from a human expert. So feedback is at most important in the case of reinforcement learning. If you don't get a feedback, you are not able to find out whether you're doing it correctly or not. So as I told you, the reward and the penalty, if you're not getting the reward and the penalty, you will not be able to find out your course of action, what you are going to do next. Whatever you are going to do next is dependent upon the penalty and the reward that you are going to get. Okay, so it is of utmost importance that you get the reward or the penalty. The action has to be given, the response has to be given. Clear? And this is also, you can take a pic of this, because this will come let you know that if it is a discrete value or if it is a continuous value. Continuous value is something like this. Continuously you are changing, and discrete value is images, audios, videos. So if you have something like that, you can go for a classification problem or a clustering problem. But if you have a continuous value, you go for a regression value. And if the data is not labeled, you go for dimensionality reduction. Okay, so there are many algorithms for classification, there are many algorithms for clustering, and there are many algorithms for dimensionality reduction. One of them is PCA for dimensionality reduction. And for regression also, you can have different forms of regressions. So basically, if your data is continuous and the data is labeled, you go for classification. Data is continuous, regression. The data is continuous and it is not labeled, you will go for dimensionality reduction. Data is discrete and labeled, you go for classification. And data is discrete but not labeled, you go for clustering. And then accordingly, you can choose any one of the algorithms related to clustering. Like clustering have k-means. I showed also that. Yeah. There are different types of clustering methods. You can go for hierarchical clustering, you can go for partitioning clustering, you can go for density clustering. I will share the slides with Manish sir. Just after this, after the lecture, I'll share the slides with him, and those slides will be shared with you all. So if you have any doubts or questions, that can be answered through those slides. And these two slides are really very important because they give you a feel that which type of algorithm that you're going to apply on your medical domain. Generally, we go for classification or clustering in medical domain, like glaucoma detection, heart disease detection, kidney failure detection, and nowadays it is corona detection. So on the basis of the BP, of the heart rate, and so on, you can identify that the person has corona or not. Okay. So here, now we can go ahead with the questions if you have.
Participants, now the session is open for the discussion and your query. So you can raise your queries, questions.
I hope I was able to give you an insight on machine learning and how you can identify how can you identify domains of medical domain, the different problems of medical domain in which you can apply machine learning algorithms.
Yeah, it was a wonderful session, ma'am. Although we are not from the computer sciences section, so probably we don't understand too much of coding and all that. But whatever you explained with reference to like what is true positive, true negative, false positive, false negative, that is, I think, we have learned these concepts particularly with reference to COVID nowadays.
Yes.
Sometimes the results may be false positive, false negative. Also, we have observed this while in the process of testing for the COVID test.
Yes.
Yeah, right. So I think a lot of work in this direction is going on as far as your coding system is concerned, that the people, those who are working for COVID, they are trying to collect the data in terms of like what strains of COVID are responsible for causing the infection. And they are trying to prepare a program so that the data can be collected, that if a particular strain infects the people in some specific region, then what kind of symptoms are generated, and people of what age are mostly affected.
Exactly.
What is the
What is the true positives and true negatives? This is one of the evaluation patterns, and depending upon the data that you have collected, if it is in a textual format, then you can go for a different type of an algorithm. And if you have images, as I told you, that if it is a discrete value or a continuous data, then accordingly you can apply your machine learning algorithm onto it and predict what is going to happen in the near future.
Yeah, right.
Basically, analysis. So you can go ahead with 4 types of analysis: diagnostic analysis, predictive analysis, prescriptive analysis, and also predictive analysis, in which you say that, okay, what is going to happen in the future, or how you can change it also. So prescriptive analysis is quite useful in the case of corona cases, corona analysis, in which you are giving the prescription, what you should actually do to avoid corona in December. Like many of the medical reports are saying that we are going to have a new height in December because of years. So what can be the measures that you can take as prescriptive analysis? You can go for a prescriptive analysis using machine learning algorithms and find out what are the measures that you can take. You can stop that peak.
Yeah, right. Absolutely. And we can also check out with that people of what age are more likely to be affected with the fatal situation. Yeah, right.
Yes.
Yeah. So that probably helps a lot. Yeah, participants, any questions? Yeah, there is one participant who has raised hand, Rajni Kant.
Madam.
So,
yes, madam. Thank you, madam. Good morning, Dr. Pooja Jain, madam.
Good morning, sir.
Madam, as madam has pointed out, could we use this machine learning process in designing chips which could diagnose certain conditions in our tissues, like say renal tissues or blood vessel, or it may be a cerebral tissue, or it may be a myocardial tissue? Can we design chips and could we program them so that they could?
Can do it.
Is it possible through machine learning, madam?
Yeah, I told you in the beginning also, I'm a core computer science engineer. I've never studied bio in my life. At least I did it only till 8th class. So I'm not very sure, but yes, you can use. I have given
like for example, madam, like for example, blood sugar levels have increased. The sugar levels in blood has increased, right? Generally, what our system is having, it is having a sensor. Our system is having a sensor, like it senses that elevated sugar level, and then our tissue starts secreting insulin, right? So that we could control the sugar level. So is it possible what is happening in vivo in our system? Is it possible through this technology, madam? That is my question, madam.
Sir, definitely. Either you can have the images or you can have the sugar level values. That's what I told ma'am also. Like either you can have a textual data or you can have a image data in the biomedical domain. So if you are going for images of the tissues, then with the images of the tissues, you can compare it with the normal and abnormal tissues. So if it is normal, then you don't have to give any alarm or anything. But you can compare the images of these tissues with the abnormal tissues. And then you can say, okay, there is some similarity, and you are moving on to onto a different stage, and you have to take insulin. That can be done.
Thank you, madam.
Next participant is Dr. S.S. Mani. You can ask question.
Thank you, madam, for giving the opportunity. First of all, I would like to thank Madam Pooja Jain for giving this awesome presentation. And I am Dr. Manikiran from Vignan Pharmacy College, madam. As we are having this artificial intelligence for our master's program, so today you have really cleared the machine learning. But I was really wondering how far this machine learning would really help in product development when it comes to the design of quality medicines. Would you give some light on that?
Yes, sir, it is going to do a lot. As I've already told you, machine learning is about learning the things. So you can compare your current product that you are going to design with the previous products which are there. You can say, suppose you are going to design a product for BP monitoring, suppose. Okay. And then you want to say that, okay, if the BP goes on to above 140, then a siren should be there. Okay, something like that. So this can be very well done with the machine learning, in which you can compare the data, the previous history of that person, the complete history that is, like suppose if a person is already having a BP, so then he is generally in the range of 30 to 50, isn't it? So if it goes to 80, then you put a siren. Okay, but for a person who is a normal person who doesn't have a BP, for him the range is from 20 to 40. Then it goes to 40, then you put a siren. Okay, so on the basis of the person, you are deciding that what should be the range. This can be very well done by the history of the person, that you had you store the history of that person from past 1 year, and then you can say, okay, generally you don't have so much of BP, so you are today having so much of BP, you put a siren.
Means because as you are referring, when it comes to machine learning, we have a past data so that we can map it out. What if if it is a new data?
No, if the new data is not there, see, machine learning is basically you should have the data.
Okay.
And data should be sufficient so that you can predict it.
Okay.
If the data is less, that is the major problem in the biomedical domain. Like even I was also trying to find out for kidney failures, but I couldn't get so much of images which were having a kidney failure. I could get the correct images, but I should also have the incorrect images. Then only I can do a comparison. So we are coming up with another very good technology known as GANs, in which we are generating the data.
Okay. Thank you very much, madam. Thank you for.
Big problem.
Yes, thank you for BV Corp also for giving this opportunity.
Yeah. Any other participant who wants to ask anything to ma'am? Yeah, I think so. We are done with the query session, ma'am.
Okay.
Yeah. Thank you so much on behalf of Bharati Vidyapeeth College of Pharmacy, Kolhapur, for giving your consent and giving your valuable time on such an upcoming subject, which probably is a subject evergreen. We can call it as evergreen subject because so this is required in all eras. And the way you have discussed the subject and the topic, probably this will be of much will create an interest and will help all the participants also, so that many of us can work in the direction of maybe generating a new program for any new diseases like corona, or maybe in future if we come across any such kind of diseases. So probably this will help us as far as the diagnosis is concerned, as far as providing the treatment part is also concerned. So probably this will be of great help to all of us. So thank you, ma'am, for such a wonderful session. It was a great session, and we thank you from the bottom of our heart for your value time. Thank you so much, ma'am.
It's the pleasure is entirely mine. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you so much, ma'am. Yeah. Dear participants, we'll connect to the next speaker soon in 2 minutes.